Hello, KermMartian here, back with Train Simulator 2020. This will be the first Train Simulator 2020 video that I post to the internets, although I did do a previous stream about a month ago on the Peninsula Corridor in San Francisco. As I said, this is TS2020 episode 1. This is also KermMartian Live number 37. And today we are going to be operating an HST, high-speed train, the Intercity Class 125, all the way from Exeter to Paddington in the UK. And this is going to be the longest route that I've ever operated, I think in Train Simulator, certainly. Let's open the doors up while I talk. Certainly on a stream, and I think in Train Simulator in general. It's a rainy day here, so we need some windshield wipers. There we go. We want to get our headlights on. Come on, headlights. Where do we have some headlights here? Cab lights, we don't want cab lights. We do want tail lights, which apparently I can't switch. Interesting. Oh, there we go. Perfect. And our doors are closed, so we're ready to go. Let us get going, and I will give you the rundown as we go. AWS is clear. Release our brakes. And throttle up. Bring up a HUD here. I want the smaller HUD, please. Not that one. Let's see. There we go. That one. That beeping sound is that grade crossing that's closing to the left, not my train, which is good. Starting in a 45 mile an hour zone, and let's throttle up a little bit. So we are at Exeter, and we are going to be going, as I said, all the way to London Paddington, which is 194 miles. I have the route maps from Exeter all the way to Bristol Temple Meads on one of my monitors, and then from Bristol Temple Meads to London Paddington on another monitor, although it doesn't actually all fit because it's such a long list of stations. I have some information about the Intercity 125 that we're operating, and I have a little bit of information about the route. So, I think we're all set. This is going to be about a 3-hour route to go that 194 miles, averaging, I guess, a little bit over 60 miles an hour, so that should be interesting. I know that in real life today, using Class 801s, that this takes about 2 hours, 2 hours and 5 minutes. Was the timetable that I saw online if I wanted to buy a ticket to ride this train today. Although, you know, with COVID-19, I don't know how popular or populated or timely those trains are. But I'm sure we'll get to that later. Alright, the fog has kicked in here because it is indeed a very rainy day. 55 miles an hour. Going into an 80 soon. We are, of course, on a British line, so I need to remember that we're doing left-hand running. My signals are going to be on the left. And let's see if we can play this by the book. Our rails should be slippery because it's raining, so I'd expect longer braking distances. There we go, speeding already. This is not a career scenario, so I'm not going to get scored, but I'd still like to do as well as possible. There we go, just 1.5 miles an hour. Over the limit, not too bad. We can definitely throttle up to full because we have a 100 mile an hour limit. And I think I have all the chat and stream things fixed. I know for the stream I tried for, hello train, the Peninsula Corridor, I didn't have the chats all connected together properly, so although there were people on Twitch and YouTube watching, I wasn't actually chatting with them. 75 miles an hour in the 100. Eyeball. this is the Great Western Main Line, which, as its name implies, goes from the west of England all the way, come on, there we go, all the way to London. That was a whistle board, so I will blow my horn for the whistle board for this little farm crossing here. 87 miles an hour going to the 100. This HST Class 125 can go 100. It's rated for 125 miles per hour in service, hence why it's called the Intercity 125. It has clocked in at up to 148 miles an hour, just as a record. So that seems pretty cool to me. I think that's about what the Acela can do in the U.S. Possibly it can go a little faster than that. Certainly doesn't go faster than that in revenue service. 96 miles an hour going to 100. I must have missed a whistle board. This is why I've got to stare at the road in front of me, not at my other monitors. Professionalism with a bit of speed and power. Throttle down to 20 and see if we can just maintain our speed here, just under 100 miles an hour. So, how are you all? I see there's nobody actually here right now, but hopefully you guys will show up soon. 98 miles an hour, gaining a little bit of speed. We are going tiny bit of, that's uphill right now actually, according to the HUD. Let's see what we have in our train today. Quite a number of coaches, in fact. You know, I'm always loath to stick my head out and watch the train go by because I know I'll miss an AWS alert or a signal or a whistle board or something. I'm 1 for 2 on those whistle boards so far. So I can't. Let's wait till we get to a station to actually look at our train. But I think I count 8 coaches in between our 2 locomotives, our 2 power cars. .7 miles an hour in the 100. Our first stop is going to be Tiverton Parkway in 10.5 miles. ETA 12:29 p.m. We're taking an early afternoon train. Obviously, we left Exeter around 12:15, 12:20, and we're supposed to get to London Paddington around 3:15, 3:20 p.m. So this is going to be very interesting indeed. Going to throttle down because we're continuing to accelerate slightly. So since we're starting in the west of England, it's going to be very rural for the early part of our journey. Since this is such an incredibly long route, I think we're going to see quite a variety of scenery as we go, ending of course in London Paddington. This is a route made by Just Trains, a third-party company that makes routes for Train Simulator, and it is obviously pretty unique in the distance that it covers. I understand that they have to limit the level of detail a little bit along the way just to make a route that can actually fit in memory. I had to update this route yesterday, and it was a 2.1 gigabyte download just for this route, and it relies on a lot of other DLC that you might have downloaded for other purposes, other asset packs like the European asset pack and I think the US asset pack as well. That looked like a great crossing. Where are my whistle boards? So obviously it's substantial. It's pretty huge. Dovetail themselves do not generally try to create routes this long. I don't know whether that's because they can't or they don't want to, or it's not economically feasible for them, or they think players will get bored playing a 3-hour long 200-mile route, but who knows. 97 miles an hour, throttle down again. Actually go to 20% throttle. Seven miles till Tiverton Parkway, and I operated this train from Exeter to Tiverton Parkway yesterday when I was doing a little bit of stream testing. It seemed like our braking was actually pretty good, even given the weather, so we'll see. Hello there, Willie Zhang. I don't think I'm saying that right. Hello, Michael Valentino. I not only can make a 3D grapher for the CE, I have made a 3D grapher. My TI Basic 3D grapher works on the CE. It's a little slow and not as fancy as my assembly grapher that I made for the Prism and for the TI-84 Plus C Silver Edition, but it is there and it does work. I've wanted to port my 3D grapher to the CE as either a C program or an assembly program. I don't think I'm going to be doing that for a variety of reasons, some of which I'll elaborate in a couple of weeks. But yeah, you're probably going to want to stick to the TI Basic version. And thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. That's kind of you to say if you're still here. I'm glad my books have been helpful. I certainly enjoyed writing them. You know, I didn't do it because I thought I was going to become a best-selling author, but they were very much a labor of love for me. So I am pleased that you've enjoyed them. And if there's anything I can do to help with your programming, let me know. Or your use of your calculator, for that matter. Totally not on the topic of trains, I published my first calculator video in a very, very long time on my channel this past week. A teardown and unboxing of a brand new TI-84 Plus CE prototype that I got through eBay, of a color that TI will probably not release, even though I think it's pretty spiffy. Throttle up again. We want to keep on schedule. On a route this long, going 10% slower than the maximum speed limit means 10% more than 3 hours. Let's see if I can do some math here. 18 minutes longer. So we want to keep it up. It is, you know, it would have been cool to do this in real time. It is, what, about 3:30 p.m. here in the real world. And I don't want to entirely miss both lunch and dinner operating this route. So we'll see. Hopefully the audio balance is decent for you guys. I did a quick check to see if it was sane, and I think it should be. I.e. my voice audible and the train audible too, but not deafening. Another green signal. Onwards. We haven't had our AWS trigger yet. I don't know if this route has significant traffic as we get closer to London. It was listed as 3 out of 5 little difficulty pips, so we shall see. 2 1/3 miles till Tiverton Parkway, platform 2. I miss my trains. I've been at home as so many have been for the last, 2 months basically. And I miss riding trains. More about that later. Another high ball. 95 miles an hour. I see the platform in sight, so I'm going to throttle down and get ready to put on a little bit of braking, maybe when we get to that signal there. Since we obviously have 95 miles an hour of speed to shed. 1 mile till the beginning of the platform. A little bit of an uphill slope here. Let's put on some brake. I'm going to do this one a little bit cautious. Come on, load the section. There we go. Since I am not as familiar with the braking characteristics of this train. Hello, train. %. Speed is coming down nicely, 71%. This does not have dynamics. Or at least I can't access them. We'll go into full service here as we approach the platform at 55 miles an hour, a little bit speedier than I want to be going, but I think we'll be okay. 40 miles an hour entering the platform. Yeah, I think we'll be okay. See if we can do a dining car stop here. In fact, we're braking a little too hard. Beautiful. Let's open those doors. All right. Welcome to Tiverton Parkway, passengers. If this is your final destination, please make sure you have all of your belongings with you and watch the gap as you alight from today's train. So we have our power car. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 coaches in our power car in the end. Doors are closed. Let us sound our horn. Release our brakes. And get going. We've got places to be, people to see, and things to do. Hello to people who are still on. I don't know if you are Willie and Michael or others, but thank you for joining me today here. Let's take a look at our train pulling out of Tiverton Parkway. Next stop is going to be Taunton, Platform 5 in 14 miles. Oh yeah. I see some cars there. Is that a grade crossing? Could be. Could also not be. Maybe not. We shall see. It would be just my luck to miss a whistle board because I was doing a drive-by in my train as I just did. Apparently not a grade crossing. Looks like we're going up a little bit of a hill here, 100% throttle, 100 mile an hour speed limit, and we want to keep on schedule today. On our 194 mile route from Exeter to London Paddington. Whoops. As I've said many times in the past on my videos and streams, I have never been to England or to the UK. I very much want to go and ride all of these trains that I've spent so much time operating over the years. And of course I want to see the country as well. I think I've expressed my Anglophile-ness, my love of things like Doctor Who and so on. British culture in general, British sense of humor. TPWS says fine. Green signal says onwards, 73 miles an hour. I hope the weather clears up a little bit as we go, although I have no particular sense that it will. Mainly because as far as I know, in Train Simulator, not World, once you start with a certain weather, it just stays that weather throughout the scenario. This is one of dozens upon dozens of scenarios that are included with the Great Western Main Line route from Just Trains. So I'm sure I will try other ones in the future. I've done one in the past. I did a freight service about 11 months ago, I think it was, and posted that on my channel. That was my first public exploration of a section, at least, of this route. I did a little bit of running around in a freight train, but nowhere near the extensiveness of this route that I have going today. Tunnel action. Blow our horn for tunnel action. So, of course, the elephant in the room, global pandemic, global quarantine, and COVID-19. I hope you all are healthy, sane, safe, and doing as well as can be expected in these strange and difficult times. As I said, I've been home for the majority of the last... Oop, we're going down a hill. Hold on. While I apply a little brakes to keep us from speeding. That should be good. Quite a steep hill indeed. 1 in 80. So yep, been home, working hard. Working on my startup geopipe. Trying to keep my own sanity. I was doing quite a bit of Minecrafting at the beginning of my self-isolation. Got a highball. Although I've not been Minecrafting quite as much in the last few weeks. I always find that my Minecrafting goes in kind of spurts and segments that after I do a lot of Minecrafting, it starts to feel like I'm not being as productive as I should be, so I have to step back from it. Or, I don't know, I don't quite get bored of it, but, you know, gotta take a break every once in a while. Moderation is the key to happiness or something like that. 8 more miles until Taunton, 12:34 p.m. in our first Great Western HST. And 23 minutes into the stream so far, according to my little counter down here. Alright, I think I can release all those brakes. We're leveling off here and throw on some acceleration. Still on 100-mile-an-hour limit since we didn't take that diverging switch. That would have been a rather abrupt switch. That looked like a 30-mile-an-hour or worse switch. I didn't see what the sign said. TPWS says we are still fine. That's what those little dings are. Can I tell you more about myself? Sure, I can tell you more about myself. I usually assume that everybody watching my streams and videos already knows more than they want to about me, but sure. I am KermMartian, aka Dr. Christopher Mitchell. Among my many hats, I am the co-founder and... Oops, decelerate, don't want to speed. Co-founder and CEO of a New York City-based startup called Geopipe, building 3D models of the real world. I am the founder and chief administrator of an online programming group called Chematech that has been for 20 years showing off cool things you can do to hack calculators and other hardware platforms and spreading programming, especially via graphing calculators, as a great way to learn to code. I am a PhD in computer science, a born and raised New Yorker, a staunch lover of trains. Yeah, those are the headlines. That's KermMartian in a nutshell. I have various distinctions, including the world's most prolific graphing calculator programmer, a title I've defended for many a year. I created a very well-known shell for calculators called Doors CS. I wrote 2 books about calculators, programming the TI-83, TI-84 Plus, and using the TI-84 Plus. Yeah. Let me know if there's anything else I can share. I volunteer at a real-life train museum, fixing trains and trolleys and operating trains and trolleys. My background is, as I said, in computer science as well as in electrical engineering, so it's fun to put that to a bit of a practical application. Come on, Train Simulator. I used to do a lot of these train streams for Train Simulator. We've got a flashing yellow. That means we should start decelerating. Flashing yellow is followed by solid yellow is followed by red, generally. It can also be just easing us into a speed limit that's coming up. I forget the exact code for this, but I think flashing yellow means we want to decelerate to 45. There's another flashing yellow. I will keep decelerating. 50-mile-an-hour limit up there. That's probably what we're getting warned about. Anyway, yeah, in Train Simulator 2017, I think I published dozens of videos, 30 or something. Train Simulator 2018, 19, and now 20, I have gradually decreased the number of videos that I've made, the amount of Train Simulator I've been playing, just because my time is ever more dear to me, and I seem to have less of it. Even in quarantine, I've been saying over and over that I feel like I would have more time, but somehow I do not. I don't know. It feels like I'm still behind in everything. But I know a lot of people, myself included, have been finding the mental stresses of quarantine difficult for concentration. I'm very, very fortunate that since my startup writes computer programs, that, you know, I can basically do my work perfectly fine from home. Come on, Train Simulator. You can do it. But it doesn't mean the world out there is any less stressful, especially when I have to do things like, you know, go and get groceries and interact with other humans. So, that little, I think it's called a feather signal, told me that we're going to be taking a left diverging switch up here, probably at that 50-mile-an-hour marker. We are going 47, so we should be just fine. And we have the Taunton platform coming up. Hello, new person who has joined us on YouTube, whoever you are. Good to have you with me. .25 if we were divergent to the right. We're not. We're divergent to the left. That is a 50 limit. Points are set. Off we go. Very nice. Obviously, we're well under that 50, since we need to stop at Taunton. And let's start slowing down for Taunton as we enter the platform at 43. Even though the Train Simulator HUD apparently is not aware. Ah, that's why. Because the platform has been shortened. We'll go to 85 full service. AWS says all as well. I'm braking a little too enthusiastically, which is a good problem to have as far as safety goes. Less braking. Want to get the whole train on the platform. There we go, we've got all our coaches on, but let's do the right thing and stop at the end of the platform. Beauteous. Alright, and doors. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Taunton. Taunton, if Taunton is your final destination, this is where you should leave the train. And don't leave your stuff behind, because we don't want it. We want you to have it. Hello there, Pedro. No problem. Good to have people from around the world joining the stream. Hope everything is well in Brazil. Hope you and your family are staying healthy and sane and safe as much as possible in these odd and challenging times. Let's take a look at our train here, maybe take a screenshot. HST. Screenshot. And another screenshot. This HST is in First Great Western livery, a little bit out of date now, I believe, but oh well. Looks like we're going to be waiting here at Taunton for a minute. Sorry, I mean that in a figurative sense, for a little while. I don't know who these people are waiting for. Also, let's use my brain and take a little reduction in our brake while we're sitting here. Not enough that we roll away, but enough that we can release our brakes more quickly when it's time to go. Sorry, ease off our brakes. Take a reduction is the opposite thing. ATP fitted. Good. I'm glad we have ATP on this HST. As I said, this is an Intercity 125, class 125. Excuse me, class 43. I think I said that earlier. Sorry, just because it's called the Intercity 125 doesn't mean it's a class 125. It's a class 43. Power cars anyway. I think the coaches are called Mark III coaches. As I said, this train is rated for 125 miles an hour in service, although it can go up to about 148 miles an hour. I don't think we're going to be testing that speed today. We have gone, let's see, a total of 15 miles? No. 31 miles so far along our 194 mile an hour route. So this is a marathon. As I said, this is the longest route I've ever driven in Train Simulator, I've ever operated, and by far the longest route I have ever streamed. I'm sure I'm going to have to break this up into multiple videos, so at some point I'm going to be weird and say something like, you know, this is the end of the video, even though obviously I will continue streaming. Let's see. Doors are closed. Brakes are released. Horn is blown. Throttle is up. And we have another person joining us on YouTube. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. Just leaving Taunton on a marathon 194-mile journey from Exeter to London's Paddington Station. Artificial intelligence, good question, thank you. This is something that is near and dear to my heart, since my startup uses, well, depending on what you want to call it, either machine learning or AI to create 3D models of cities for gaming and simulation and architecture. By the way, we are still in a 60 mile an hour limit. Artificial intelligence, yes. So I have a pretty dim view of how soon we're going to get to general AI. I think a lot of things that shouldn't really be called AI are called AI these days. Things that are machine learning or deep learning or even just, you know, classic statistics. You see a lot of startups bandying around words like artificial intelligence when really they're not doing artificial intelligence at all. And even for GeoPipe, we hesitate a little bit to call ourselves an AI company, given that what we do is complicated and admittedly incredibly hard to reproduce deep learning using a variety of proven and new techniques. But, you know, until we have systems that can make, you know, general AI decisions, I don't think it's a huge concern, and I think we're a long way off from that. I certainly do have, you know, concerns about if and when we do get to general AI, what it can possibly do and what we can put in place to, you know, keep a handle on it. I think we have more pressing problems right now, like broad data surveillance by private companies and governments. I think we have problems like not addressing global warming. I think we have ever more divisiveness in the world, you know, so I think we have some more immediate problems. But I do think that as we get towards more and more complicated computer systems, I don't know, I think one of the things we should be aware of now is just being able to understand how our systems work. As we add more and more abstraction between the hardware and the software and what we as users interact with, I think it's important to understand how those decisions are being made underneath and how that's affecting people. I think not everything in society can be decided by an algorithm. On the positive side, I'm of course very enthusiastic about what machine learning, deep learning, and AI can do to save humans time and effort on doing rote, boring things. You know, I think one of the points of technology is so that we can have more pleasant lives, so we don't have to have people do, you know, the rote, boring jobs anymore, so we can relax more and enjoy life and, you know, spend less time working. This is Just Train's Great Western Main Line, all the way from, well, you know, they have different branches. I am operating from Exeter to Bristol Temple Meads, and then from Bristol Temple Meads all the way to London. As I said, that's 194 miles, and as far as I know, one of the longest continuous routes that's in Train Simulator. Certainly not from Dovetail itself, from Just Trains, who, as you may or may not know, make third-party routes. And as I just showed you at Taunton, I am in a First Great Western Blue HST. 95 miles an hour. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. Don't want to speed today. Either I keep missing those whistle boards, or they don't have whistle boards for every farm crossing. I have to keep my eye open. As I've said many, many times in the past, one of the biggest problems I have is getting carried away with the interesting things I want to say and missing things in the game like speed limits, signals, and whistle boards. So, in the interest of emulating how I would actually drive a train in real life, operate a train in real life, I will try to be professional, even while using speed and power. Top Gear reference. We are not going anywhere in particular according to that feather on top of that signal, other than straight ahead. Let's keep our speed up. We have places to be. And apologies if you're here for a while and I repeat myself. Since people are coming and going, I want to make sure I'm not leaving anyone in the dark. Looked like we had a diverging route over there. If I look at my map I have open on one of my 5 monitors, I see that that is the charred branch line that just diverged. And presumably converged. I was reading that this branch, this line, the Great Western Main Line, is 2 tracks in many places and 4 tracks occasionally when the traffic requires it. And I'm sure as we get closer and closer to London, that will have the 4-track right of way more and more often. 38 miles to Bristol Temple Meads BTM. That will be at milepost 116 and a half from London. So that'll be, let's do some math here, 77 and a half miles from the beginning of our route, Exeter. As I said earlier, I've never ridden on British trains, but it is very, very much something I want to do soon. COVID-19 is probably going to continue to delay that, but as much as I enjoy riding my American trains, and then as much as I'm very much going to continue riding my American trains, I would love to ride all the British trains. 99 miles an hour. Let's not speed. I've only sped once, and I was 1.5 miles over the speed limit for about 20 seconds. So far, so good. Let me not jinx myself. We've got an 8-coach train in between 2 Class 43 HST power cars. And we are bringing our passengers where they need to go on this rainy early afternoon in England. Looks like it's the middle of summer here. We have green trees, green grass, and green shrubs. In the real world, at least where I am, spring has sprung. Spring has definitely sprung. We still are having occasional cold days. Today is a pretty overcast, cold day here in the real world. AWS says all as well. TPWS rather. No, that was AWS. Yes, but we haven't quite reached summer yet, especially since I know in parts of the US today, like in New England, there is snow. Snow on May, what is today, the 9th of May, 2020, since you may be watching this video anytime in the future. I think I'm going to cut this video at Bristol Temple Meads, by the way. I think that'll be a good natural stopping point. Obviously, again, I'm not going to stop the stream, but I'm just going to say this is the end of one video and the beginning of the next. Because I suspect most people don't have the patience to sit through a single 3-hour video on YouTube. I suspect they might see, ooh, this video is 3 hours? No, thank you. CPTM, I assume that is That must be a translation. Metropolitan Train Company, something like company something train Metropolitan. I know it's always interesting to see the French abbreviations for their trains and realize that they're, out of order because they are obviously not written in English. Like the SNCF. What made me interested in computer science? That's a great question. That is an excellent question. Hello, station. Obviously, we're not stopping for you. Breezing right through here at 100 miles an hour. Hope nobody was standing too close to the edge. Computer science. Sure, this is a good, it's something that I think gradually I was led to throughout my life. Indirectly, nobody said, hey, you should play with computers. They're cool and you probably, will enjoy them. I started loving trains when I was very few years old. I had many, many small trains as a child. I had Duplo trains and Lego trains, and there were these little plastic but excellent trains called Remco trains. When I got old enough that it made sense, I had first HO trains and then N-scale model trains. I loved real-life trains. I grew up in a city with subways, so I loved riding the trains. Hey, the last millennial, good to have you with me here. Good to have you with us. Just answering Willie's question of what got me into computer science. And I swear I'm getting there. I'm talking about trains, but that led me to computer science. So there's a museum in New York City called the New York City Transit Museum. And when I was a relatively small child, I went there, given my love of trains and transit, for a workshop. And they had a workshop on electricity, where they had batteries and light bulbs and compasses and wire, and you could deflect the compasses by putting current through a wire, and you could light up light bulbs with a battery. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I started becoming interested in electronics. I got these series of kits from Radio Shack. Rest in peace. Long may it rain. I'm gonna sound my horn here for a crossing. Got a 110 mile an hour speed limit coming up, which is nice. I got kits from Radio Shack, the Farce MIMS kits. They had one called a 30-in-1 and a 130-in-1 and a 300-in-1 that had these little reusable components embedded in a board with spring terminals. So you could just connect wires between the spring terminals and make circuits. Make things like radios and digital circuits and oscillators and sound generators and all kinds of cool stuff. And I thought that was really cool too. It taught me to read schematics, to have a basic understanding of electronics, and that spurred an interest in electrical engineering in general, kind of electronics, taking things apart. I've always been very interested in how things work. As I went through life, I had computers in school, and I learned how to program in in first grade. I learned to program Logo. That's the one where you have like a little turtle, and you give the turtle commands and make it move around on the screen. I taught myself Q Basic in 4th grade. I had, computers at school that I could run Q Basic on, and I also had this little tiny, I think it was called VTech or something, this little kind of toy computer, but it could run, classic Basic with line numbers. The one, 10, print hello, 20, go to 10. And I learned Basic with that. And then in 6th grade, my school had us start using TI-82s in math classes. And I started playing with these calculators and discovering that they could be programmed. In 7th grade, I got my own TI-83, not Plus, not CE, not Silver Edition, just a TI-83. And I started experimenting even more with programming. I had some games and programs from other people. I saw what could be made. I started poking around with the programming commands and trying them out, and I realized, wow, this is really cool. I can basically create anything I can imagine with these programming commands if I just figure out the right order to put them in. And that kind of was the thing that really cemented my love of programming. As I mentioned earlier, I became, humbly the world's most prolific graphing calculator programmer, writing hundreds upon hundreds of TI Basic and later assembly and C programs for the calculators. I went on to teach myself Python and C and C++ and learned some of those in school as well. I did a PhD in computer science, and basically I love writing programs. I love imagining something I could write and turning it into a real program, something that really works and actually does something powerful and cool. We are speeding. Let's not. Yeah, I went to a pretty great school, number one for elementary school. I was very fortunate there, and I also was in advanced math classes where they were having us experiment with a little bit of statistics and probability and combinatorics in 6th or 7th grade. Geometry too. So, trig functions, which admittedly you can do with a scientific calculator, but they figured, let's just use TI-82s. Of course, very quickly, my fellow students figured out that there were things like Bomberman for these calculators, and you could, for one of my friends, I should say, classmates would be a more accurate term. I thought I was pretty cool because I spliced together one of those little short TI calculator linked to, unit-to-unit link cables with a piece of speaker wire to make a 6-foot long cable so they could play multiplayer Bomberman in class. Cool stuff. Pedro, the tourist express in Brazil. We have slowed down too much. Let's fix that. Power and speed. The TI-82 and the TI-83 as well, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I do remember correctly. Both, had kind of hidden assembly. You had to do send 9 program, whatever it's called, to actually run an assembly program. There was no ASM token. So discovering that was pretty amazing. For the longest time, I was confused about the difference between TI-83 Plus and TI-83 assembly. And I was very sad when I tried to transcribe TI-83 Plus assembly programs onto my TI-83 and found that they didn't work, that there was no such thing as like a B call, for example. Anyway, how are you doing today, the last millennial, and everyone else? Are you guys doing well, staying healthy, sane, safe, holding up as well as can be expected in the age of quarantine, in the age of COVID-19? We have a 100-mile-an-hour speed limit coming up in 1 mile and 2/3. And another train. Let's blow our horn for this other train. That seems like a short train. How did I figure out the ASM language on my own? That's a good question. So, I wish I had had something like ASM in 28 days available to me. I didn't. I learned from a tutorial. Oh man, I forget the name of it now. It was an older tutorial. It came packaged as a Windows. I see the speed limit. Thank you. As a Windows help file. In retrospect, looking back, I now know that it was a little bit frankly incorrect. There were some problems and errors and bad practices in it, but I did learn assembly with it. It was very helpful. Later I found assembly in 28 days. A lot of my learning definitely came from reading other assembly programs, and with anything in programming, I think one of the best things you can do is, number one, read other people's code, and number two, write programs, test them, see how they work or don't work, figure out what's wrong and fix it, and maybe take a look at other people's programs and try modifying those programs, and break them by accident and then fix them and see how they work. But yeah, I didn't have really a computer available to me for my early days of assembly programming, so I had these notebook after notebook filled with assembly code. I think one of the first motivating things to push me to learn assembly was writing Doors XP, which later became Doors CS. So before I ever actually ran Doors XP or Doors CS code, I had notebooks full of assembly code for all these routines I thought of and how they should work. Much of the code I wrote wouldn't have worked as is. Like I was loading, 10,000 into the accumulator, which can only hold 1 byte, or numbers 0 through 255. and there were definitely things that I didn't understand, but writing that out, thinking and learning to think in assembly, learning to think as an assembly programmer, I think served me well once I was able to actually dive in more and, start testing with assembly program. And oh man, my early assembly days were tough. I had floppy disks with TASM and, my assembly programs on them, and VTI, and I would use VTI, the emulator, to test my programs. I would use the computers at the libraries to test and run my programs. It was definitely interesting, and definitely something that if I hadn't cared to put in the effort, I wouldn't have done. But it was just one of those things that I wanted to do, I wanted to learn, and I kind of persevered, and I'm proud that I did. Correct me if I'm wrong, the last millennial, but you haven't really written too many assembly programs, is that correct? If I'm wrong about that, how did you teach yourself assembly or learn assembly? Also, in train world, we have 16 miles to Bristol Temple Meads, and it is 1:02 p.m. in, train sim world. No, I didn't accidentally make a virus. The most annoying thing is, since I was using floppy disks would every once in a while fail, and I'd lose stuff that I had written, and that was always a huge pain in the neck. Nope, never accidentally made a virus, I'm happy to say. I made a program in my computer security class in college that was, part of the assignment was to write a stack smashing program. And I was very amused that my antivirus detected it as a virus, but it wasn't an accidental virus. It was, intended to smash the stack. C9 equals return. That is, I think, one of the first hex codes that everyone learns, in addition to the BB6D that used to start all TI-83 plus assembly programs. So I'm glad you know that one, C9. And there's a variety of C opcodes that start with C. Jump and call are also C opcodes. Yeah, I saw your second battery and wireless charging project. I'm intrigued to see where it goes. As you know, I have a long love of stuffing random electronics inside calculators, and I think yours is one of the, doing it for good. You're not exactly trying to cheat with your calculator. So I applaud you for that project, and I'm hoping it's going to work out well for you. I keep seeing these level crossings with no whistleboard sign, unless I'm totally missing them. I'm going to be very embarrassed if I watch this in post and discover I just keep missing these whistleboards. In the real world, I would have operated this route dozens or hundreds of times before, so I would know it like the back of my hand. Since this is the first time I've ever operated this part of the route, obviously I'm not really familiar with it, but all the more reason to pay attention to the signs and signals. How about the rest of you? How are you doing? Do any of you program? Do any of you program calculators or other platforms? Do you do electronics? Do you create electronics projects? Do you work with embedded electronics like the Arduino or the ESP or any of those other platforms? Do you love trains? Are you here because you love trains, or because you've mostly subscribed to me because of my calculator videos? I always wonder about that, because my calculators get orders of magnitude more views than my train sim videos. One sec. Pause. I'm curious what station we're at. Where is a sign for this station? I think there's one there. What do we have there? Yatton. We are at Yatton. Well, here's our train, by the way. I haven't looked at it in a while. Train. Screenshot. Focusing on trains again for the moment. Yatton is at the 130-mile milepost from London, which means we have 13.5 miles to Bristol Temple Meads. Train Simulator, for some reason, says 11.25 miles. I'm not sure why that discrepancy. That also means that we have gone 64 miles so far out of 194. And I've been streaming for 56 minutes, so that seems about right. That's not speed. Coffee. Coffee is my lifeblood, as many of you know. Since this is a 3-mile route, and I had food very a little bit before I started streaming, please excuse me if I do a little bit of snacking. I have some leftover Easter chocolates here, and I will certainly be snacking on those. Snacking is the way to go. Try not to snack too loudly. 98 miles an hour and a 100 mile an hour speed limit, 1:07 p.m. game time. Estimated 13 minutes to Bristol Temple Meads in 9 miles. Command Block Guy. A local train. I think that was a class 375. How are you, Command Block Guy? How's it going? 2 months ago, Easter was like 1 month ago. Also, because people weren't really shopping in the stores for 1 second. I believe this may be Nailsea and Blackwell that we just passed. These people weren't really shopping for Easter stuff amongst the pandemic. I was able to get post-Easter like 75 or 90% off sales on Easter candy. So, whoa, it just got super sunny. What the heck? Okay. Interesting. Let's take a screenshot while it's sunny. Screenshot. Can I get a trackside view? I cannot. So that's why I have so much Easter candy. I'm doing alright, thank you for asking, Command Block Guy. It's a weekend day here in the real world, so a little bit of time for train simulator streaming. One of my first train simulator streams in a long time. In the world of COVID-19, you have to do what makes you happy, so this makes me happy, so I'm doing it. I'm operating the longest route I've ever operated in Train Simulator and that I've ever streamed. 194 miles from Exeter in the west of England to London's Paddington station along the Great Western Main Line. Hell yeah, there's more than one camera angle. We can be in the driver's seat. We can look outside the, come on Train Simulator, the front car. We can go to the back and monitor from the back car. But let's take that screenshot too. I like that got sunny. This is great, even though it's raining. There must be a rainbow somewhere. We can press 4 and do this kind of drive-by thing. Gotta love that. Let me just get into my cab real quick and make sure I'm not missing anything. No AWS alerts, we're not speeding. I don't see any signals coming up. We are going down a hill, so I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. Let's see, if I press 5, that's the passenger view. So if we wanted to really be bold and we could really watch our HUD carefully, we could just operate from being a passenger here, you know, drink our coffee on the table here and, you know, enjoy the ride. Look at this guy pensively staring out the window. Let's keep our speed up. That's always nice. See the scenery out the window. Ooh, that window needs a bit of a cleaning. What else do we have? We have 6, which is a coupler view if we're going to do some careful coupling. Also, there's a 90 mile an hour speed limit coming up. 7 is a really high up view. And then 8 is stop the camera where it is, which is always a fun one. How are you, UDXS, by the way? I don't know if you've ever joined me for a train simulator stream before, or if you have, I apologize for forgetting. Ooh, 7 people on YouTube and 1 on Twitch watching. This is a busy day. I like it. I like it. We're rocking. Very nice. Thank you all for joining me as we operate trains in the west of England. AWS wants me to know there's a speed limit coming up. I acknowledge that speed limit. I will do a little bit of preemptive braking for that. We are going down a hill. There we go. We are now under the speed limit, at least as far as Train Simulator is concerned. We're going to start getting some converging tracks here going into Bristol Temple Meads. I believe that is the cross-country route that just joined us. Come on, Train Simulator, you can do it. You can do it. Come on. There we go. That is not my internet connection. That is Train Simulator loading the next section. You can certainly derail the train. I've done it before. I try not to. I know. I see the 25 mile an hour speed limit. I think only once have I done it by accident. Something went wrong with the scenario. The signals were not right or something. And I had a head-on collision with another train at, what station was I going into? I think I was on the East Coast Main Line. Anyway, there was a head-on collision. It's in one of my videos on YouTube. That head-on collision certainly derailed the train. AWS is trying to feather me down for that 25 mile an hour speed limit. I've also derailed trains by going too fast. You know, just for fun, I've tried using some of the high-speed trains and trying to see just how fast they can go. And then if you go around a tight curve going over the speed limit, you can derail because there's a reason speed limits exist. Come on, train. Come on. You can do it. There we go. Pie Man! I remember you being there for that collision, Pie Man. Oh, I'm not remembering the name of the station that was outside of. This is not our station. I'm slowing down a little too much. That's gonna drive me crazy. I don't know if I've had enough collisions to, you know, make a compilation. It's not like I go out of my way to have collisions. In fact, I usually try for professionalism and realism and all those good things. You know, I don't want, since I also drive real trains and trolleys at a museum anyway, you know, I don't know if it's the best marketing to go and look at my videos and see, oh, he likes crashing trains into each other. Whereas I know that many train simulator streamers do occasionally go out of their way to crash trains, especially if you're operating something like the jet train. Let's get down for that 25. We're going to be diverging off to the right. There we go, 25 miles an hour. Cool, cool. And the sun is back. This is weird. I don't know what Train Simulator is doing. I don't tend to scream at the top of my lungs. I've definitely been surprised and annoyed by things like Train Simulator not having routes that are set up correctly and going into like a 30 mile an hour limit at like 100 miles an hour, and getting deducted tens of thousands of points out of 100. That's definitely happened. So, you know, I think a fails compilation is certainly something that's possible. I'll have to think about that. That's a good idea for a future video. And I have been to Bristol Temple Meads before in Train Simulator, believe it or not, for the Welsh line that Train Simulator has. this is a very, 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 very long platform. Holy heck. Let's do a little bit of slowing down soon. I need to stop in the green zone, even though it looks like I'm just sort of cruising my way along this platform. The platform is nowhere near long enough for my train. I'm going to have to overhang my loco a little bit. Beautiful. So we have 7 cars on the platform. And let's open the doors. Now, excuse me. Excuse me? I'm on the platform. Are my doors open? They're not. Fascinating. Huh. Interesting. Let's try something unorthodox. This might just be a glitch in the scenario. Let's release our brakes and back it up ever so slightly. This is Train Simulator 2020. Currently I'm trying to figure out how to trick this scenario into letting me open my doors on this platform. It thinks the platform is where the green is. Can I open my doors now? No, I can't. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. What do we think? How are we going to trick Train Simulator into doing the right thing? Let's back it up even more. This is clearly BTM Platform 9. Am I just here too early? No, I'm not. I'm supposed to be... Well, actually, I'm here too early. I'm supposed to be here at 3:18. Clearly, I am here early, but that still shouldn't be a problem. Also, backing up on a main line is very much a no-no, so let's not tell the authorities. I'm just trying to get my locomotive within the green zone, as you can see on the HUD there. That really shouldn't make a difference, it never does, but you never know. You never know what's going to trick Train Simulator into being friendly. Not the horn, the doors. There we go. Apparently that was the trick. Who knew? So, if you're in the first 5 cars, you can alight here at Bristol Temple Meads. If you are in the rear 3 cars, if your doors are not open, then I encourage you to walk forward to where you see an open door and depart the train there. Thank you for riding First Great Western today. So here we are at Bristol Temple Meads. If you are watching this on YouTube, then this is just about the end of the video. This is the end of part 1 anyway. Thank you for joining me for this KermMartian Live number 37, episode 1 of my Train Simulator 2020 series. And if you are indeed watching this on YouTube afterwards, then I will see you momentarily in the next video, episode 2. If you are on the stream, then you shouldn't really go anywhere because I'm about to say the introduction to video number 2. If you are watching this, of course, do all those things that YouTubers always tell you to do. You know what they are. I won't repeat them. And see you soon.